So this is a debate I never thought I'd have to have, because I assumed that as a species we realized the practice of child marriage was an abomination at this point. Apparently Muslims, like Daniel, think this is a practice he can defend as a moral good.
And the example of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. In his marriage to Aisha, the mother of the believers, he has provided a timeless example of this institution, which is so desperately necessary for all societies. Thank you.
Hello and welcome to Shoe on Head. If you have not seen my video called Maps, I'll give you a summary of the filth we are talking about. It is a cute little nickname pedophiles are giving themselves in order to get good PR. They're trying to normalize something very dangerous, and I don't see anybody else on YouTube talking about it right now.
But what Daniel's going to told you about this paper, even though he's been citing as far back as 2019, is the paper mainly focuses on homosexual pedophilia. He is trying to say that is not a mental disorder.
So my goal here is I want you to know what is happening, what has happened, and how it's happened. In the old days, there was sodomy. That refers to unnatural sexual acts. In the late 19th century, homosexuality was coined, a condition. A generation ago, the accepted term became gay. The transformation of a crime against nature into a co-equal civil identity within a little more than the span of one human lifetime.
This brings us to pedophilia. Pedophilia is not an ancient concept. The first documented use of the term is 1906. Gradually, pedophilia came to mean any adult who has sexual interest in a person below 18.
Daniel, if you're watching, as I was making this, I saw it was the anniversary of Star Wars Episode 2.
And that was sort of the costume that, I came on set and everyone was like, oh.
I was 10 years old, and the scenes on Naboo meant nothing to me. It was only the scenes with the lightsabers.
And she also wears the clothes.
Gosh, this is how Sean Head must have felt having to say stuff like this.
In February 1988, however, a war conference of 175 leading gay activists representing organizations across the land.
There was a meeting in 1988 of 144 leading homosexual activists in San Francisco. And there they strategized a campaign to basically change the way Americans think about homosexuality.
The conference gave first priority to a nationwide media campaign to promote a positive image of gays and lesbians.
There's a book, I've mentioned it before,
called After the Ball, and the subtitle is How America Will Conquer Its Fear and Hatred of Gays in the 1990s.
By Marshall Kirk and Hunter Mattson, two professors at Harvard University, one in psychology and one in marketing.
As I mentioned before, this was written by Harvard grads who were both gay, Marshall Kirk and Hunter Mattson.
Published in 1989. Listen to this. To suggest in public that homosexuality might be chosen is to open the can of worms labeled moral choice. Straights must be taught that it is as natural for some persons to be homosexual as it is for others to be heterosexual. Wickedness and seduction have nothing to do with it. And since no choice is involved, gayness can be no more blameworthy than straightness. This is an argument based upon their understanding of the nature of man. By the way, not based on any evidence. They're saying that we have to be taught this, even though it's not true.
Pedophilia initially means a psychiatric disorder in which an adult fantasizes about or engages in sexual acts with a prepubescent child. Even modern research casts doubt on the existence of psychological trauma from adult-minor sexual relations. Psychologists Bruce Rind, Philip Tromovich, and Robert Wasserman, what they discovered is that while there can be problems in some cases, there's no inherent harm with adult-minor relationships.
You brought up Bruce Rind. That's probably the same paper, Pedophilia as a Mental Disorder. What he's basically saying in his paper is that the active partner, the human, is not suffering from a mental disorder. It's something that naturally arises in humans. That doesn't mean it's useful or good. On page 7, child sexual abuse researchers have repeatedly maintained that hemophilic interactions are innately and intensely harmful for the younger person.
These psychologists received backlash, as you can imagine, and we can dive deeper into the studies later, but the point is the claim.
So in summary, this would mean that pedophilia is not wrong, only that it entails problems. Is that anything like good enough? And anyone wants to settle for that? And what does Sean Head have to say?
The fact that these people have ages of attraction, like 2 to 5, means a grown-ass adult looked at a 2-year-old and went, is that really the hill you want to die on?
It depends on how you define mental illness. So if a mental illness is something that causes harm to you, say that other things like pedophilia or mental disorder because they cause you to cause harm to others, or you gravitate towards activity that would that doesn't make sense in terms of human nature?
There's a thing that I learned in my abnormal psychology courses, which is a useful a combination of criteria to determine whether something is a mental disorder or not, and that's it's called the 4Ds, which is dysfunction, danger, deviance, and so based on those different standards, you can determine if a person is, for example, suffering from a disorder.
Even in the DSM-5, it'll give, like when it's giving a criterion, it will say either this problem is causing you distress, so your desire for little kids is causing you distress, or you're acting on it, right? Mm-hmm. Because someone could act on it and not be distressed at all, or you can not act on it. You actually use your self-control, but it's really messing you up because you're you really want this, and so on. So,
but one of those things is actually important. One of those things is deviance, and as David just brought up, something can be considered normal within a society, and then somebody who practices it might not be considered mentally ill for doing a certain thing because it is common in the society. But if it's not common and somebody does something extremely unusual that also fits all the other criteria, that could be seen as a deviant, distressful, dangerous action.
Helping them get set up with real therapists, I wouldn't care. That would be great. That is what we want. Stop trying to normalize it. Stop trying to co-opt the LGBT community. Go to therapy or go to jail.
Yeah, and by the way, June here from Shoe on Head actually went into a video response exchange with pedophile YouTube. So I think she deserves a round of applause for bravery.
Pedo is bad PR. It's got so much baggage attached to it. Let's just straight up say what we are. We are attracted to minors.
Wait, I'm confused. Was that a defense? I'm not a rapist. I'm a surprise sexer. We went from MAPS being a niche Tumblr thing that people sort of laughed off as a joke to this in 4 years.
As you will be able to see, this is what June doesn't know, as many others might not know. This is actually something that came out of psychology. When psychology was invented around 200 years ago, it was supposed to be a science of human beings, as if one could exist like the other ones. It's meant to be completely amoral and technical without any moral jurisdiction involved. And that's a perfectly fine way to be talking about plants, the solar system, different rocks, minerals, even some things in human bodies in as much as they're actually physical things. But if we use this terminology to be talking about ethics, this is when the problem's going to come in.
Animals have no moral obligations to one another.
She has wounds and bite marks on her body.
Bite marks are what we call mating scars.
No matter what species, shark mating is a violent affair.
When a great white shark forcibly copulates with a female, it forcibly copulates with her, but it doesn't rape her.
In this rare footage, 2 male white-tipped sharks lock a female in their jaws as one of them mates with her.
So that was what they were trying to do with making the term like minor attracted person. And it may be that people just went and turned up to see psychologists. And that explains why we have this problem now.
So this guy apparently was a fan of mine, and his entire channel is dedicated to defending pedophilia.
Yes, MAP is the politically correct term for a minor attracted person. Don't like political correctness? Me neither. I'll make you a deal. I'll let you call him whatever the hell you want as long as you respect him.
You'll let me call you whatever I want? Okay, baby fuck. You know as well as I know, most of these people are attracted. Every time I say this, I feel like, oh no.
This was their strategy and this was their goal. Desensitizing. What does that look like? To desensitize straights to gays and gayness, inundate them in a continuous flood of gay-related advertising presented in the least offensive fashion possible. If straights can't shut off the shower, they may at least eventually get used to being wet. Desensitizing. Tell the truth. You see a gay character on a show, you don't even get offended anymore. It's just there. We're just so used to it. Arnie Duncan, he started Chicago's Annenberg Challenge, endorsed establishing the Chicago Social Justice High School's Pride Campus. It was Chicago's first government high school for the promotion and reinforcement of the sodomite lifestyle. Kevin Jennings, well, he's a founder of GLSEN, the Gay, Lesbian, Straight Education Network. His strategy was to introduce a program designed to indoctrinate school children toward the homosexual lifestyle. By the way, Bill Ayers and Barack Obama served together on the board of the Annenberg Challenge. Duncan brought Kevin Jennings to Washington to federalize his pro-homosexual curriculum for all school districts in these United States of America.
Prostasia created a MAP support group. All over their website are words like free speech and sex positivity. Like, they recently had some webinar, and I'm not even joking, this is what it was called. I actually found the director of the organization. Meet Noah Berlatsky. If we refuse to let young people advocate for themselves, or refuse to grant them bodily autonomy, it is not because there is something wrong with their decision-making capacity, it is because there is something wrong with ours. They also have clinical psychologist Dr. James Cantor, who had to say this.
Speaking as a gay man, I believe we should include the P. To do otherwise is to betray the principles that give us our rights.
Perhaps your Muslim friend told you that Muhammad was a champion of women's rights. But he forgot to mention that Muhammad had sex with a prepubescent 9-year-old girl named Aisha. The Quran claims that we read, the Messenger of Allah said.
So we're going to be reading another one of these. 5 Lessons of Psychoanalysis. And in here we have probably one of the most disgusting ideas in the whole of humanity. Did I not say psychoanalysis? Well, I guess you call that a slip, right? No. It is only experiences in childhood that explain susceptibly to later traumas, and it is only by uncovering these almost invariably forgotten memory traces and by making them conscious that we acquire the power to get rid of the symptoms. The imperishable, repressed, wishful impulses of childhood have alone provided the power for the construction of symptoms, and without them, the reaction to later traumas would have taken a normal course. But these powerful wishful impulses of childhood may without exception be described as sexual. And now at last I am quite certain that I have surprised you. Is there such a thing then as infantile sexuality, you will ask? Is not childhood, on the contrary, the period of life that is marked by the absence of sexual instincts? No, gentlemen. It is certainly not the case that the sexual instinct enter into children at the age of puberty, in the way in which, in the gospel, the devils enter into the swine. A child has its sexual instincts and activities from the first. It comes into the world with them, and after an important course of development, passing through many stages, they lead to what is known as normal sexuality of the adult. And what he goes on to say is that the formation in somebody is that a child would start, if it's a male child, he would start to become attracted to his mother and would also then be jealous of his father, and that this jealousy would actually make him see his father in the right way as his example, and then see what I mean? I said this before. I think psychology's Muhammad was worse. So you see, there isn't just Muslims to worry about. I think we should be worrying about other things too. And it's not a bygone theory. I've met people who still believe in it and base other theories on top of it. Deduce other things from the fact that they believe it. And they teach it in classes.